The village of Ceres can be found nestling in the hills of central Fife in Scotland. It has been described as one of the most attractive villages in Scotland. The name Ceres has fascinated people for centuries and prompted many theories. The earliest form is probably derived from the Gaelic word meaning the place to the west, a reference to the early medieval church here in Ceres being attached to the Church of St Mary's at St Andrews. With a long and varied history, the village has 16th century buildings side by side with modern dwellings. 18th century Plumtree Cottage, for example, stands next to a terrace of 20th century houses. The cottage has served the villagers as a shoemaker shop, general store and draper shop before becoming the residence it is today. The village green, known as Bowbutts, was once the scene of archery contests and fairs. Today it is where the Ceres Highland Games take place. The granite memorial overlooking Bowbutts was erected to commemorate the 600th anniversary of the Battle of Bannockburn. The inscription on it reads, "To commemorate the vindication of Scotland's independence on the field of Bannockburn, 24th of June 1314, and to perpetuate the tradition of the part taken therein by the men of Ceres." According to local legend, the Ceres Highland Games were established to mark Robert the Bruce's victory at Bannockburn. To this day, they are held on the last Saturday in June every year, this being the nearest to the battle date of the 24th. Established in 1721, the Ceres Inn stands at the hub of the village, a crossroads where many tracks would have converged in the past. Opposite the inn sits the provost, a Toby Jug figure intended to represent the Reverend Thomas Buchanan, minister in the late 16th century and last church provost. The sculpture is reputed to be the work of local stonemason John Howie. The provost is framed by assorted carved stones, perhaps taken from the ruins of nearby Craighall Castle. The lower part of the surround, framed by two female heads, depicts a 17th or 18th century hunting scene. Further examples of John Howie's work can be seen throughout the village, including a left-handed piper and panel commemorating 3 village girls lost in a flood. Let us now follow the gaze of the provost and take a walk down Main Street. The linen industry brought prosperity to the parish in the mid-19th century, when the population was over 1,000, and until the mid-20th century, Ceres was a self-sufficient village. The demise of linen production saw a drop in population, but today it is back to over 1,000, albeit with the number and variety of shops very much reduced. The 19th century 2-storey session house has retained the wide archway of the earlier hearse house. The top end of Kimberley, a 2-storeyed house, has been a school and parish council rooms. The house, once occupied by the grandfather of John Howie the sculptor, displays carved panels above the front door. At the end of Main Street is Meldrum's Hotel, a 19th century hostelry. Close by, the Ceres burn borders Bowbutts, and a path leads us to the Spout Well, one of the many which served the village needs in the 19th century. The well reputedly had powers of longevity. One minister who drank daily from it lived to be 90. As we approach the church up Kirkbrae is Mansfield. This dwelling was built in 1788 at a cost of £329 as a new manse, but after the amalgamation of the churches in the village, it passed into private ownership. The church itself dominates the village skyline, and to tell you more about it is the Reverend Eric McKimmon, the present minister.
This is Ceres Parish Church. As you can see, it's in a prominent site. I think in old times the churches were in high ground and prominent for people to come to worship. There's been worship here in Ceres, it's estimated for over 1,000 years. There was a monastic community the Chaldees they were called. They lived in cells and worshipped as a community on this site. And then later on, before the Reformation, there was a chapel here built by one of the great families and dedicated to St. Ninian. So there was continuous worship right up to the Reformation. And then on this very site here, there was a church built. And it lasted then until 1806. This building itself was built in 1806. The building is important architecturally for various reasons. It was built, the basic building was built 1806, but the tower was added in 1851 and the steeple in 1870. And of course a feature of the tower is the town clock. The box pews are a feature of many churches. We have these boxes in the centre aisle, which were used by families in the past, but also used for long table communions. The boxes can be dismantled, and then the tables are assembled, and once in the year in June, people come out from the side pews and file into the long tables and sit actually at the table. I suppose it's more reminiscent of the Last Supper, sitting at the table. I don't know if many other churches celebrate it like this, perhaps one or two, but it's a special feature of our church here. The church, as you can see, is large capacity. Some people suggest it, I've heard it suggested it holds 1,300 people. Certainly if you bring the gallery into play, that may well be the case, the D-shaped gallery. Another feature is the dove above the pulpit. Like all churches of the Reformation, the pulpit has central place, and it's a lovely feature to have the dove of peace looking down from the pulpit up there. Again, other features of the church are the war memorials, which you find in many churches, the Great War 1914-18 and 1939-45. One of the most striking features coming into the vestibule is the stone effigy of a knight, a Crusader knight. This knight obviously goes back a long way. It shows that Scotland was involved in the Crusades. The knight for a long time lay in the cemetery, in the graveyard. He was recovered and restored, and now he's in the vestibule. Again, a sign of the antiquity of the site.
On the south side of the village, there is a row of mainly 18th century houses known as the Castle. Perhaps there was once property here belonging to Craighall Castle. Opposite the castle is Castle Gate, a lane leading back to the High Street, and so named because the way from Craighall Castle opened into it. Castle Gate consists of modernised croft and cotter houses, weavers' sheds and the old dairy. Leaving Castlegate, we enter the High Street, once the heart of a vibrant community. A restored row of weavers' cottages and the 17th century toll booth and weigh house now house the Fife Folk Museum. The toll booth was built in 1673 at a cost of £86. The jugs hanging by the door were to put minor offenders on public display, and the stone carving above the door reminds us that this was a seat of justice and the forerunner of the present-day Trading Standards Office. Inside, the museum has many artefacts of local interest, including reference to the work of sculptor John Howie. The coffee shop next to the weigh house was originally an alehouse and appears to have been built as part of the toll booth. And next to that is a modernised weaver's cottage with its age clearly shown on the door lintel. At the west end of the High Street stands St John's Lodge, formerly the home of the Masonic Lodge of Ceres. After falling into disrepair and becoming uninhabitable, the house was restored in the 1960s. The lodge overlooks the Bishop's Bridge, so named after Archbishop James Sharp, who is said to have crossed the bridge in 1679 on his way to St Andrews. Archbishop Sharp was considered to be an enemy of the Church of Scotland, and shortly after leaving Ceres, his coach was ambushed by Covenanters and he was brutally murdered. His tomb is in the Holy Trinity Church in St Andrews. This once bustling community has given way to a quieter rural atmosphere with a sense of real history. The weaving industry and its supporting roles have gone, but today we have a new cottage industry in a pottery. The pottery is located in a converted steading of the former manse. Griselda Hill will tell you more about it.
Welcome to the Griselda Hill Pottery, home of Weemsware. Weemsware was first produced in Kirkcaldy, not far from here, in 1882 by Robert Heron and Son. Robert Heron travelled extensively and returned from a trip to Bohemia with Karel Neckler, who became the chief designer of Weemsware. It was he who brought the bold and vibrant designs to the product. My first encounter with Weemsware was a pig owned by my grandmother. I loved that pig as a child, and when I moved to Ceres in the 1980s, I realised how local the pottery had been. I wanted to buy one but could not afford it. It then crossed my mind to make one myself, but then I thought others might like them also. I obtained the Weemsware trademark in 1994, and so began Weemsware at Griselda Hill Pottery. Evidence of Weemsware can be seen throughout the village and beyond. The Queen and other members of the royal family number amongst our commissions and collectors. Although most of what we produce is based quite closely on the original ware, we use the originals as a jumping off point for a lot of new designs. We don't like to think we are slavishly reproducing the old ware, and we can only do what they did. Weemsware is very much a living tradition. It moves with the times. I'm sure Karel Neckler would be pleased with what we're trying to do here at the pottery today.
Had it not been for the generous funding and sponsorship by the National Trust for Scotland, North Fife Preservation Society, Fife Council and other organisations, the restored buildings as you have seen them today would in many cases not exist, and part of our history may have been lost forever. Perhaps you've been tempted to see more for yourself, in which case you would be most welcome in the village.